Welcome to Florida Gators Live, episode number 41. And you can tell we're getting closer and closer to football season when we're now trying to jam pack all of the previewing football topics right before the season. We're going to talk about the Florida Ole Miss game. We're going to talk about the Florida Texas game with Matthew Miller from the Texas channel, the Voice of College Football. But Tyler, how was your week?
It's been pretty good, just kind of really getting to the point where I'm like getting excited for football,
Mm-hmm.
obviously like in my day job writing about college football, like coaches poll came out this week. So some news on that front, Gators number 17 there. But yeah, just kind of like actually starting to get real. We've had some preseason NFL football. Like we're getting there.
Yeah, now we're at the point where we're counting the days. I mean, we've been counting down since for the past 100 days now at this point till the football season. But now we're actually at that point to where it's like it's 3 weeks away from the Gators playing, 2 weeks away until week 0, and it's like, and you know it's right there. It's got one more weekend, and I mean, you got one more weekend of freedom. Some would say. I find it more like Christmas finally coming when football's here. So we got 13 days until the college football season kicks off in Ireland, 20 days until the Gators kick off against Long Island. And so in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, when we're doing our Long Island preview show, I wonder if that segment is going to be longer than either of the segments we do tonight. Like, probably not, right?
Probably you would think probably not. I obviously we'll give them their due and talk about them, but I don't think there's gonna be a lot of like matchup analysis that needs to be done.
Yeah, maybe we can like figure out the combined weight of like the starting lines of scrimmages and stuff. I mean, if we did the star rating, it might even be pretty close.
Yeah, their blue chip ratio is pretty high. I think they're like top 20.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Long Island, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they got Preston Carey out there on the D line.
Yeah, they do. The funniest commitment ceremony I've watched in quite a few years.
Absolutely. But, speaking of funny, let's get into this Florida Ole Miss early preview here. Why I say what's funny, last season, after Ole Miss was able to upset Georgia, beat Georgia, it was at Vaught Hemingway, if I'm not mistaken. Lane Kiffin went out and said some stuff about the SEC championship game, and he got a lot of flack for it because it came out as him being scared of competition. Although people take things for what they aren't all the time, and he was really just saying what his mind and how, hey, Notre Dame doesn't play a conference championship game, so they won't be hurt. But if I do and I lose, I will get hurt. But then Florida goes and beats them the next week or 2 weeks later. I'm pretty sure they had a bye after the Georgia game. So, and now he wishes he would have been playing in the SEC championship game to where he still could have made the playoffs. But no, this is a whole new year, a whole new Ole Miss team, especially. I mean, Florida returns a lot of pieces, but this Ole Miss team entirely brand new. Besides a
Mhm.
couple of players, now they have a good couple of players they return, but for the most part, it's entirely new. Here, I have their offense right here. We can take a quick look at it. QB Austin Simmons, the running back room, very interesting. Nothing really mind-boggling there. I know Logan Diggs was at LSU for
Mhm.
the beginning of his career, and
Yeah.
now at Ole Miss. But then you have a couple. I mean, I think you trust that Lane is going to have a good enough of a receiving core or be able to scheme them open
Yeah.
at least. It's going to be a Lane Kiffin offense. I mean, Caden Lee's a pretty good wide receiver. I know a lot of people think he has breakout potential, but I mean, Dazon Stribling and Harrison Wallace. Wallace was from Penn State, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Caleb Odom, a former 5-star. Caleb Cunningham, who was a 5-star in the last cycle, in this coming cycle right here,
Mhm.
going into his freshman year. It's like, so they got some young talent, but I think it's going to be a common theme here where they have some young talent, but it's not proven. It's still like they got a lot to do before you look at this Ole Miss team as the level we were looking at Georgia, Texas, depending who you are at Miami, A&M, and LSU. But you can see a foundation here of this Ole Miss team, this offense at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. Like this Ole Miss game last year, like I like hand up, I was kind of a fire Billy and give Lane a try guy.
Mhm.
I still think Lane's a really good coach. I think losing that game
Absolutely.
certainly gave me the ick a little bit though when it comes to Lane Kiffin. No, but I mean, looking at this year's team, it's kind of just an example of like you live by the portal, you die by the portal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they portaled such a good class last year, the number one transfer class in America. Obviously missed the playoff because of a couple frustrating losses, Florida being one of them.
Mhm.
But that was still like if depending on how much faith you put in the metrics and the analytics, like per SB Plus from ESPN, that was Ole Miss's best team in 60 years, the best team since the 1960s. So it's kind of interesting coming into this year because it's like, that was your best team, on paper, production wise. You still fell short of that goal of making the playoff. And it's like, now what? They've portaled an entirely new group of guys here, a lot of turnover. It's not like it's a bad portal class, but it's also not
No,
as
it's not
overtly.
last year's.
It's not as overtly impressive as last year. I mean, last year when you bring in like guys like Walter Nolan and stuff, it's like, okay, Juice Wells, like they had so many good transfers. This year, it's a little more like it feels a little bit more transition-y for them. So, I mean, I
Yep.
think this is an interesting team. I think this is probably an upper half of the SEC team still, or at least, around that range.
Yeah. I think
But
they
it
have a
doesn't,
very realistic floor that is
yeah,
like
like
8-4, maybe
I
7 and
agree.
5.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I also don't really see this team at all. Like, we talked about A&M a few weeks ago. I don't see A&M as like a surefire playoff contender, but I think they're a
Mm,
lot more so than like this Ole Miss team is. I really don't see this Ole Miss team being a playoff contender. I mean, like you said, looking at the offense, I mean, Austin Simmons like has played well. A guy Florida had committed at one point.
yeah.
He has played well in very small reps. I think his extended action mostly was against Georgia. Am I wrong?
He
Or
had
is that
one
right?
drive against Georgia
Okay.
that's where everyone is,
Yeah,
talking about why Austin Simmons could be the
exactly.
breakout star in the SEC.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, I trust Lane with quarterbacks. Like, I'm sure Austin Simmons
Yeah.
will be fine. It'll be fine. But I mean, Jackson Dart is was one of the best quarterbacks they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
I just don't. Like it's kind of a recurring theme with this team. It's like it's not bad, but it's like I don't really see how you don't take a step back from what you were last year.
Yeah, I think one thing about this Ole Miss team last year, I mean, they suffered some injuries in the offensive line, but I feel like they weren't physical enough on that offensive front. But they
Hmm.
still, I mean, you go look at what they had. They had Jackson Dart, who was a first round pick. Um, and Juice Wells. Why am I forgetting the receivers' names right now? um, why am I forgetting all of them?
Uh, man, I know them. Like I just can't like I'm blanking on their names right now. Hold on, I have their
Yeah,
stats up. I got it. It's yeah, Trey Harris, Jordan
Trey Harris.
Watkins,
Yeah,
Caden Lee. Yeah, they were
Juice
actually all
Wells.
three of those
And
guys were more productive than Juice was.
yeah, so I mean, Trey Harris, Jordan Watkins, the tight end, Caden Priest corner was really good. So it's like they
Hmm.
lose all of those guys. They do return one of them, in Caden Lee, but it's like,
Yeah,
are those guys able to step up enough to make up for maybe a lack of physicality on the offensive line?
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, probably not,
yeah.
but maybe we're wrong here. I mean, and again, the running back room isn't all inspiring. I mean, again, we talked
No.
about. I mean, Logan Diggs. I mean, Kawan Lacey, transferring from Missouri, like didn't really do anything, which is a mid to low 4-star recruit. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot of kind of just good, but not maybe mid to good. Besides, maybe Austin Simmons and like Caden Lee.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a particularly good running back room last year. They lost
No.
Quinshon
Well,
Judkins and kind of struggled to replace him. It wasn't like overtly productive. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, Diggs is interesting. Like Diggs had his moments at LSU where he was promising. He transferred here last year. I'm pretty sure he was hurt all of last year and didn't play. Okay, he played. He had
yeah.
one attempt for 15 yards last year, so he played a little
Hmm.
and a catch. So he played a little bit, but he was hurt for most of the year. So I mean, he's back. Like I think they expected him to be more in the fold last year, but like, we'll see there. But yeah, I think between the offensive line and just, I think the questions at the skill positions, the questions with Austin Simmons at quarterback, like I don't really see this being a particularly prolific offense, at least compared to what they were last year.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the offensive end. I mean, I don't even think they were that prolific last year. I mean, they
Mhm.
statistically, you look at it and they were one. I mean, hey, we previewed this game, the game going into last year,
Yeah.
and I had brought up comments people have left me, saying, were telling me that they were the best offense. Just look at their yards, look at their points per games. But hey, I was like, it's a bunch of kind of just garbage. Like the game, they put up a lot of points against Wake Forest, and then like their other, garbage opponents. Like it wasn't that impressive. And then in SEC play, I think they had 2 games where they scored more than 30. And I believe it was Arkansas and Oklahoma. Like outside of that, I don't think they scored more than 30 at all.
Yeah, looks like you're right. Yeah, they didn't even score 30. They only scored 26 in the Oklahoma game. They only scored 30 once. They scored 60. They dropped 63 on Arkansas. That
Yeah.
was it.
So it's like they had like 5 or 6 games, not including the bowl game, where they put up a ton of yards and points. But then outside of that, it's like maybe they put up yards in those games where they didn't score over 30. But this was a team that just couldn't convert and score touchdowns when it mattered. I mean, go look at the Kentucky game. Look at our game. Look at the LSU game. I mean, honestly, they should have not lost any of those games. I mean, especially that Kentucky game, but like they should not have lost to us. They shouldn't have lost to LSU. That should have been a team that was really good. And it's like now you look at the offense, they replaced so many good players, and maybe Austin Simmons is another level than Jackson Dart was. But are we projecting a guy who has no starts to be Jackson Dart? I know I'm not. To be
No, I
better
mean,
than Jackson Dart.
yeah, I mean, I think Jackson Dart was really good. And like, obviously he kind of melted down at the end of that Florida game, but like Jackson Dart was still a very good quarterback for them the last, 3 years? Was he a 3-year starter at Ole Miss? At least 2. I think he was 3.
Yeah, 3 sounds right. Because
But
2022,
either
I'm
way,
pretty sure.
yeah, I think so. Cause he had started at USC. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, this isn't a bad team. I think this is like a competitive team in the SEC. It's just like, they fell short of expectations last year, and most of those guys that created those expectations are now gone.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Like I again, none of it's like bad. It's not like I don't. There's no position group where I'm like, this is abysmal. This is a major problem. It's just it feels like kind of consistent mild downgrades across the board. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it's very true. I think another part that had Ole Miss so hyped going into last year wasn't just the transfers. I mean, it was transfers, but like Jackson Dart, he was a transfer, but he had 2 years of experience. And Trey, my God, I'm already forgetting
Trey
their names right
Harris.
now. Trey Harris.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure he was already in another year there. Like they were transfers, but guys that they had developed. And that's kind of where I see this Ole Miss team, where they're at the point to where they had a big transfer class, and right now it's not huge names, but maybe in a couple years those guys will develop, and maybe the next 2 years of good seasons, and then they'll bring in a transfer class with the Walter Nolans and Princely amount of millions and stuff. But let's get on to the defense here, because this is where I think they take the biggest step back. I mean, I don't think it's possible for them not to take a massive step back. I mean, you lose Walter Nolan, who I think was one of the best players in college football last year. Like you watch him, and it's kind of mind-boggling to not how he wasn't like a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. I mean, especially if you watch the Florida Ole Miss game, it felt like he was the only defensive player for Ole Miss, and he was getting stuff done for him. Like he was going insane in that game, and they lose JJ Pegues, who was a veteran nose tackle for him.
And offensive weapon.
Yeah, offensive weapon right there. They also lose Princely Montemillion, who, was really good at rushing the passer. Was drafted in the third round, right?
Princely, yeah, something like that. That sounds right.
So was a really awesome player on that front seven. It's like you lose 3 really valuable players, and You replace them. We see here Deshaun Womack, a former 5-star, another kid from LSU, and it's like he hasn't done anything yet.
No. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll have a good year this season, then next season he could have a breakout. But like right now, all that Deshaun Womack is living off of is maybe what they've seen in practice and his 5-star status. Like, I don't think
he's had a couple moments. Sorry, I was saying he's had a couple moments in game. He kind of has played a little bit over the last couple years, but yeah, very, very much an unproven player there in Deshaun Womack.
Yep, and then Xavier Harris, like another unproven who was like their backup last year. Maybe was solid, like someone that you would maybe expect to take another leap. I'm not even sure who Jamarius Brown is. He had he had 17 tackles, half a sack last year. So, it's guys that played some last year. They didn't go in the portal to replace or anything like that. And then the one that's really intrigued me here is Princewell Umanamilian. Because he was, let me pull it up right here. Obviously, the brother of Princely Umanamilian. And if you pull up his 247 ranking, coming out of high school, he was ranked 268, the number 26 edge. So he's a solid 4-star prospect, went to Nebraska. But then his transfer ranking.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Number 4 edge and 19th overall player in the class. He had, what was it? He had like 1.5 career sacks.
He had half a sack last season.
Yeah, he has 1.5 career, half a sack last season. Why is his ranking so high?
Name recognition. I mean, I know that recruiting ranking out of high school weighs pretty heavily into transfer recruiting, but like there were still had to have been a decent amount of guys that ranked higher than Princewell coming out of high school.
It's not even like where he's ranked among players, but like his grading is a 94.
Yeah.
Which is like a top 100 player basically in high school. Like the other edges around him. Let me take a look here. I mean, Damon Wilson going from Georgia to Missouri. He was a really good player. That's a really tough loss for Georgia, actually. Patrick Payton, we'll see what you get from him.
Your mileage may vary on that one.
Yeah. David Bailey is someone who I think is a really good player.
Yeah, that's phenomenal
for Texas
huge
Tech.
Pickup for Texas Tech. Yeah, that's massive.
So then it's Princewell. And I don't know who Romello Height is, to be honest, but going to Texas Tech. James Williams was a really good player for Nebraska last year as well. Will Helt, really good player. Elo Madoze going to Georgia. It's Marvin. I'd have Marvin Jones. I mean, there's no reason not to have Marvin Jones above him. Like, there's so many names here. I mean, Jack Pyburn. I feel like he should 100% even be above Princewell.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he still had better sack production, right?
And TJ Searcy. Yeah. Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand what happened there.
Yeah, that was weird. And I remember that being like a thing, and it was like, well, that'll even out as more guys enter the transfer portal, and it kind of just didn't. I mean, at one point he was like the number 1 player in the transfer portal or something ridiculous.
I remember that. Yeah.
But even then it evened out to like still top 20, which is kind of wild.
It's like, not even his ranking, it's the grading, like getting a 0.94.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, that's very bizarre. That was one of the bigger oddities of the offseason transfer portal.
Yep. But then you look at the linebacker core. This is probably where their best returning spot. So TJ Daugherty had 2 sacks last year, 76 tackles, returning starter, if I'm not mistaken. He's a good player there, proven SEC production. But then the real big player here is Suntarine Perkins.
Yeah.
Had 10.5 sacks last year. Potential first-round pick, former 5-star. Like, this is a home run for them, but really good player for them. That's maybe their best returning player on the roster.
Yeah. No, Perkins is an absolute stud. Perkins is a stud. Can play everywhere, can do anything. Like, plays off the ball, like you said, rushes the passer, 10.5 double-digit sacks. Like, he is like just the prototypical like Swiss Army knife outside linebacker. Like, exactly what you want. He's an absolute baller, and he's the only reason that I'm like still semi intrigued by this defense.
Yeah, I mean, outside of him, it's interesting. They replaced their entire secondary basically. Here,
Yeah.
I mean, you see it right here. Transfer starter left corner, transfer starting the entire secondary projected at least is transfers. I know Nick Cole has been in the program, former 4-star. Chris
Mhm.
Graves as well. I think it's now his second year there. Former Miami player, if I'm not mistaken. So again, even I'm pretty sure Cole was also a transfer. Okay, no, he wasn't. But still, like Graves was a transfer. Even the players who are still on the roster, some of them are transfers. I mean, Sage Ryan is someone who never lived up to his high expectations
Yeah.
going to LSU. I mean, I remember when he was going there, the DB court unit was starting to fall off for LSU, and it's like, hey,
Mhm.
especially the safeties, like we're bringing in Sage Ryan, a 5-star guy, and got playing time early, and just
Mhm.
was never able to do anything with it. So it's like, I mean, with how many players they took, I mean, I feel like it's going to be good. I mean, Jalen Braxton's a solid corner. Pretty sure was injured last year. But like, I mean, do you look at this corner, this DB core, and be like, yeah, they're stopping Dallas Wilson, J. Michael Sturdivant, Trey Wilson, and DJ Lagway throwing the ball, like, unless Sunterrain Perkins is getting pressure every single down, like,
Mhm.
I don't think our offense should have a problem with this defense at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's talent here. I'm just like inherently
Just-
skeptical of a secondary that's all transfers. Just like I think that's an important where communicate. Sorry, a position where gelling together and like communication is so important. And like if you don't
mhm.
have the experience of all playing together, like you're just mixing and matching. Like I think that's kind of a recipe for disaster. I mean, like, and again, there's nothing like super overwhelming here. I mean, Sage Ryan, like you said, former 5-star recruit that has played a little bit, kind of played all over the field, played at corner, nickel, and safety. Never really became like a massive game changer. I mean, obviously Lane kind of banking on the talent here with this one,
Mhm.
but like, yeah, I just again, there's nothing here. Like of all this, for such a heavily portal defense, it's kind of wild that the only thing here that has me really like that's interesting is Perkins,
Yeah.
because he's already proven himself to be a great player. But there's not really like last year there was Walter Nolan. There's not really a Walter Nolan
No.
of this transfer class. I think all of them are guys that for are transfer for one reason or another, but they're not guys that you're adding and it's like, wow, what a coup for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their defense from last year, and I don't think it's crazy to say it was the best defense in the country. I mean, it's
Mhm.
pass rush, it's run defense. Only one running back or one team had a player go for over 100 yards rushing on them. Shout out Montreal Johnson there, but I mean, it was what are their numbers from last year? I mean, they didn't give up many points last year.
No, no, they did not.
I'm
Um,
pulling it up now. Like, okay, here. So, 76 to 0 to Furman. That's what I'm talking about. Them stat padding a bit, but like 0, 3, 6, 13, 20 against Kentucky.
mhm.
That 3 to South Carolina, 29 to LSU, 14 to OU, 31 to Arkansas. But that game, I'm pretty sure they had the backups in at like halftime at that point. 10 to Georgia, then 24 to us, and 14 to Mississippi State, and 52 to 20 win over Duke. So it's like that was a really elite defense. Now, maybe you could argue they didn't face many elite offenses or really
Mhm.
good, even debatably good offenses. I mean, South Carolina is probably the one that comes to your mind, but they were
Yeah.
hurt that game. I mean,
Mhm.
it's funny looking back at South Carolina. Don't want to deviate too much here, but South Carolina, like at like the midway point of the year, it was a team that no one really expected to break out how they did at the end of the year. But second with Ole Miss here, I mean, that defense last year was just prolific, and
Mhm.
they lose nearly everything from it besides a couple players. The linebackers, they lose everything but the linebackers, really.
Yeah.
And I think it carried them a bit more than people realized last year, and I don't think they can do it again.
Yeah, and it's like, do what again? They went 9-3. That's kind of the
Yeah,
thing. It's like
yeah,
this team disappointed even with a team that was on paper, again, its best in 60 years. So, I mean, I think like looking at this game overall, I think the positioning of it late in the season is a little worrisome. It kind of does feel like potential trap game material right ahead of Tennessee. If you're 8-2 going into that game, is that a game where you worry about losing focus when like a playoff spot's within reach potentially? But I mean, on paper, there's just nothing about this matchup that's like particularly scary to me. Again, I think they're going to be solid. I think they'll probably be fairly similar to Florida's like weight class within the SEC this year. But I don't think there's any position where I feel like Florida's like really overwhelmed here.
Yeah, I mean, you look back. I mean, you may even look at could be a revenge game for Ole Miss, but I feel like over the Lane Kiffin tenure, if you go and look back at revenge games, I mean, really just specifically Alabama, I get because I mean they were winning a lot of they've won a lot of games under Lane. I don't know if that's really been something that has motivated them a ton. I mean, the Georgia game last year, it's like they went all in on Georgia, and they were able to beat them into the ground. But I don't know if it's something that's gonna be scary enough, even at Vaught Hemingway.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a game that I'm too worried about, even though if you remember back in the spring when we did or before the spring, I should say, right after the season, we did our original season predictions, and I kind of picked this as like, hey, this is the upset game for us because I wasn't going to pick us to go 11-1 there, but so I had to pick that second loss. So I just don't know if Ole Miss has the firepower to beat us offensively or defensively. So I think this is a pretty secure win. But, anything can happen in college football. I mean, maybe Austin Simmons, there are people who are really high in Austin Simmons. Like, they're talking about him in New York. If he is that good, I mean, Jackson Dart wasn't in New York. I don't think so.
No.
I mean, maybe if Austin Simmons is a bit better and maybe they can close on drives a bit better against the good teams or in those close games, that it can take them another step. But I don't know if I see that. Like, hey, I mean, what is the Ole Miss schedule this year? It's really easy to start the year, at least. I mean, it's pretty easy the entire year from the.
Yeah, I don't think they play a premier non-conference game.
I mean,
No,
when is their earliest like big time game?
Tulane at home is the toughest they got. Non-conference.
They play Kentucky. They play at Kentucky week 2. I mean,
yeah,
I'm as low as you can be on Kentucky. I mean,
Kentucky's going to be. They're going to be.
State.
I do too. They're going to be horrendous this year.
Yeah, I mean, when will we actually learn what Austin Simmons is? Like, I don't think you learn it against Kentucky, Arkansas. I mean, I think they'll be decent. Maybe that's when you learn about them.
Arkansas returns a ton of players from a defense that was not very good. So, like, that's kind of like take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, Tulane, I really like John Sumerall, but I mean, maybe Jake Retzlaff, he's not the BYU anymore, so I don't know what to call him, but Jake Retzlaff, maybe they can get something out of Ole Miss that no one else will in the first 3 weeks of the season. But then that LSU game, that's probably going to be a huge game for both teams there because Ole Miss should be undefeated going to that game, and if they are and they beat LSU, then people will start talking about them as a playoff team. And hey, I have LSU already having 2 losses at that point, so they will need to win that game. So I don't know. Ole Miss has a lot of fun games on their schedule, but like not really like big time opponents.
No, and there's really only 2 here from looking at it that I think that I'm like confident in saying they'll be an underdog going into, which would be LSU at home and then at Georgia. Like, I mean, Florida will see it.
They're going to be an underdog hosting LSU.
I'm pretty confident they'll be an underdog hosting LSU. I mean, obviously, if LSU loses to Clemson and Florida, then maybe not. But I mean, I would say like odds are they will be a pretty hefty underdog in that game. Obviously, they will be at Georgia. I mean, maybe at Oklahoma, we'll see how good they are. Maybe home against South Carolina. Obviously, depends how Florida looks mid-November. But like, yeah, his schedule, like now that I like actually look at it, I mean, it wouldn't take a lot for this to be a CFB team this year, even if they're not all that good.
Yep, absolutely. So final predictions here for this game for this season. I think it's pretty obvious we're both going to take Florida here to win this game. Yeah. I mean, the talent difference, I think, is just too much, and proven experience is going to be a little bit too much for Ole Miss to handle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Florida handled this game last year. I think Ole Miss is going to take a step back. I mean, like I said, I think the positioning, I think it is a potential trap game for Florida, just with the way it's spaced out in the schedule. But I I just think if Florida is the team that we expect them to be, this is just not a game they're going to struggle with. I think they'll struggle with other games, and we'll get into one of them that I think they might struggle in just a few minutes. But, I think this is one where if this is what we think this is for Billy Napier and this Florida program, like, I don't think this is going to be a major struggle on the road against this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll be back to talk Florida, Texas right after this break.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.
I think you're on mute, Tyler.
Yep, I was on mute. Welcome back to Florida Gators Live. We'll be introducing your Matthew Miller from the Texas channel here at the Voice of College Football. If you want to go and introduce yourself.
I'm Matthew Miller at the Voice of College Football Texas channel. We do a live show every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so tomorrow night. Then we're also doing a Tuesday live show now with the former NFL player. It's a really good show, getting the X's and O's a little bit more, so check that out as well on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Hey, so do you just go by Matthew, Matt, or?
Matthew's fine.
Matthew? Okay.
Yeah.
So we did our own Florida, Texas preview, really just going through the Texas roster about a month ago now. And there's been games like Texas A&M where we left kind of more impressed by A&M than we thought we were going to be going into it. But the Texas one, we left a little lower on Texas than we were going into it. Now, we both still picked Texas to be one of our losses this year, even though we were lower on it. But just quickly here, one thing that really shocked us or kind of worried us about Texas was their interior of the defensive line. We're just quickly do this here, but we looked at that and it's a lot of transfers, some young guys. What is your expectation of that defensive line?
So going into the offseason, I thought I was worried about it, but then the guys they picked up, I really like. Murad Watson, I really love that guy coming over from Syracuse. Apparently absolutely killing it in camp so far. He's been unblockable. Him and Alex January have seemed to step up the most. Alex January was a freshman last year and played a decent amount down the stretch. And I think he's going to have a really big sophomore season. He's actually my breakout player for Texas on defense. I think he's going to be really good. And then you have other guys like Cole Brevard coming over from Purdue, kind of like a payroll type season where he wants to make as much money as possible because guess what? This is his final film before he goes to the NFL. So he needs to put that on tape. Travis Shaw kind of in the same situation. He's a former 5-star guy from North Carolina transferring over. So I think that it's deep. It's not super talented, but it is very deep. But I kind of just trust him at this point because the last 2 years you've had 4 guys get drafted in the top 100 in the NFL draft from the defensive tackle spot. So I mean that's really good proof of concept there. And I think the edge group is probably the best in the country. I mean, you go 4 deep there with 4 very, very talented players. And apparently Justice Terry and Lance Jackson, who are both 5-star players, freshmen, are doing very well as well on this defensive line. And they're going to slide inside as well on some downs. On a NASCAR package, for example, when we have 8 guys out there just trying to rush the passer, we'll slide them inside and probably use them as pass rushers. And then on other downs, they'll play defensive end. So I'm actually super high on the defensive line itself.
Yeah, so you messaged me you want to do this. Do you want to start our offense versus your defense or vice versa?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we'll take a look at your defensive depth chart here. We already kind of started it a little bit talking about the defensive line. I mean, we looked at this and we saw Travis Shaw, Cole Brevard, and it's guys with solid to good production at their other schools, but nothing like the SEC. And it's nothing like what we've seen from Texas over the past couple of years. And it's like, hey, one of Florida's biggest strengths is our offensive line.
Mhm.
We returned 4 of 5 starters, and the other starter, the new starter, was 6th on our team in snaps last season. This is a veteran group that graded out as one of the best in the country last year. And again, I just said how we returned so many players on it. And if Florida is going to want to be able to win this matchup, now this is a home game, so having the home crowd as a factor is really good for Florida. But if you're looking at it on paper and looking at the teams, Florida's offensive line, if it can really win on the interior, and hey, a bunch of new players on that Texas D line, if they can win right there, maybe that's how Florida is able to open up this game.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think you guys probably have the best or second best offensive line we'll face all year. I think Ohio State's offensive line is very good. They have some guys that haven't played a lot at Ohio State, but transferring over as well. And then guys that kind of rotated in as well with the injuries they had last year. So between you two, that's one of the best offensive lines. Those are the two best offensive lines we're going to play. So I agree. I think I just expect Colin Simmons to take another leap. I think he's going to be a top 2 player in college football this year. I really believe that. I mean, the production you got out of a guy with 325 snaps that had 14 tackles for loss and 9 sacks is absurd as a freshman in the SEC. And a lot of those came down the stretch. And then other guys that I like, Zena Umulazulu, I expect to have a pretty good year this year. A guy that really didn't play much last year, but has put a lot of weight on his frame. Brother of an offensive lineman that we have as well that needs to play a big factor for Texas, but I think he's going to be good. And that's the thing, too. There's just so many guys on this depth chart that you're looking at that are going to play. We're going to go all the way down here to Josiah Sharma. If anyone wants to look up a picture of him, look him up. He looks like a walking refrigerator at 17 years old. It's ridiculous. I've never seen someone with shoulders that big. It's literally ridiculous. Everyone, and then the guys above him will play. And then, like I said, Rod Watson, Alex January, I think are going to have really good years as well.
So I know I said I think Colin Simmons is the best edge rusher in the country. I think he'll be the best edge rusher in the country. And Tyler Natuno, what do you think of the matchup of Colin Simmons versus possibly Austin Barber?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I think Barber, I mean, obviously, I think we both agree that Jake Slaughter is the top returning player on this offensive line, but, Barber comes back too. I mean, I think Barber is one of the better tackles in the country. I'm curious. I think, this is a tough matchup. I mean, I think Colin Simmons is about, just at least projecting off of what we saw from his true freshman season. I think he's going to be about as good as it gets in terms of, pass rushers off the edge in college football. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think that is where I would say I do worry. I think Florida will have success running the ball inside in this game against, despite, I think that's fair what Matthew's saying about the interior defensive line. And I agree. I trust this coaching staff to handle that position pretty well. But I do think Florida has the talent to have success doing that. That is, I think, a potential breaking point for this Florida offense is if Austin Barber just can't contain what might be the best pass rusher in college football. I say that's probably is a concern, but I think Barber has shown to be able to handle that job.
And then how do you guys feel about Lagway, the nagging injuries? That's the thing with me. It kind of reminds me, honestly, of Quinn Ewers a little bit, where there's always something. He's never going to be 100% healthy. There's always going to be something he's going to have to battle through. How do you guys look at that?
I mean,
yeah,
I personally, you want to go ahead?
No, you can go ahead.
I would just say, I mean, I think it's a concern. I mean, there's no doubt about it. None of it are injuries that are particularly chronic or lingering. So it's not like there's any specific injury that I'm I worry about this being a recurring problem. But I mean, at the end of the day, the dude has started 6, 7 games. And he's had at this point, the hamstring injury that limited him last season. He's had the shoulder injury in spring. He's had the sports hernia surgery from a pre-existing injury from high school, and now the calf thing that's limited him in fall. So it's a bunch of different nagging things, and that concerns you, especially because of his play style. As a big guy who maybe isn't a run first quarterback, but can move around in the pocket and absorb some hits. I think it's concerning. I mean, I think that is, I think it's become a little hackish just because it's the only thing anyone's talking about. But I think it is kind of fair to say that maybe the biggest question for this Florida roster is how many games can DJ Lagway play this season?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a concern. Any injury for any player, especially when they are reoccurring, just getting injuries all the time is going to be a concern. But one thing that kind of relieves some pressure I have or some issues I have with it is that we saw him last year. So he played with that injury he suffered from Georgia from the LSU game on, and also had that shoulder injury that turns out to be something that he's been dealing with since high school. Yeah, I thought he still looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I know you look at his stats and you see a 12-9 touchdown interception ratio, and his yards weren't crazy, but I think when you watched him on the field, when you saw what he did for the team and how he helped the run game as well, I thought he was still, a top tier level QB, even with those injuries. And that was a very serious injury. I think if he's playing with minor nagging injuries instead of a large injury, I still think you're going to get a progressing and a really good Lagway. And we know he's practicing right now. Yesterday at our scrimmage, he didn't participate in the 11-on-11, but he was on the 7-on-7s. And from what I heard, he did really well in those scrimmages, or in the 7-on-7 scrimmages.
No, I mean, I agree. I have him ranked as the number one quarterback in the SEC. We did our projections and everything. I really like him. I tweeted when I watched the LSU game, I tweeted out he's a top 10 pick when he comes out. That's how much I like him talent wise.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm going to give you guys a preview. I think I have us right now going 11-1, and you guys are the loss. So I'm very high on Florida.
Yeah.
My issue is that's literally it. If you could give me 10 plus games, I would 100% say Florida's going 9-3. They're probably going to get in the playoffs. But that's my issue because I like Jane Ball. I really like Dallas Wilson. I like Eugene Wilson. I like your offensive line. There's no weaknesses on this offense, in my opinion. It is DJ Lagway's health that is my biggest concern.
Yeah, there's a comment I want to mention here real quick. Sorry. But Jake Slaughter is a very good center, perhaps the best in the SEC. I like to say he was All-American last year, first team All-American. But at 303 pounds, I don't see him neutralizing the rotation of 340 pounds Cole Brevard and 340-pound Travis Shaw. I think obviously that's a very good point, and you look back and not many centers who could. But you look back at last year where he was the best center in the country, and he faced a murderer's row of the defensive linemen. I mean, Tennessee, Norman Lott, UCF with Lee Hunter, Texas A&M with Shamar.
Stewart?
Was it Stewart?
Is it Turner? It's
They
one
were
of
both.
those.
They were both
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those two. Dion Walker and Keyshawn Silver, Kentucky. Kristen Miller at Georgia, Texas. Like again, we played Walter Nolan. So many really good defensive linemen where he still came out as one of the best centers, the best center in the country when you watch them play and when you look at the PFF grades. So obviously a one-game scenario where Jake Slaughter has a bad game and your guys have a good game, it could go out in your favor. But I think it's a valid concern, and one of the reasons I think he didn't declare for the draft, he still needs to put a bit of weight on. But I don't know if I'm too worried about that, considering the players he faced last season.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about it because, I mean, I've seen guys like Parker Brailsford as well at Alabama. That guy's really small, and he's really good at what he does. Jason Kelsey was small in the NFL, good at what he does. It's all about leverage. And if you play with good leverage at the offensive line position, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Question I have for you, Matthew, because you mentioned that, like, you looking at the offense, you don't see really like a clear weak link. And I mostly agree. If I had to pick one, I'd say it's probably the receiving core, just because I think there's some projection involved. It's more, I think there's a lot of banking on talent versus like actual proven production. So that to me sets up what I think is maybe the most interesting matchup of this game, honestly, which I'm curious how you feel about that receiving core against the Texas secondary. Obviously, you guys bring some production back, but then lose guys like Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron. So I'm curious first of all, what you just expect from the secondary of the season in general, and then how you kind of view this matchup.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. I mean, it's going to be impossible to replace Jahdae. I don't expect Malik Muhammad to play up to that standard. Obviously, back-to-back Thorpe winner, I don't see that happening. But can Malik Muhammad be the 15th best corner in the country, and then whoever slides in on the other side, right now that's probably going to be Jalen Gilbo sliding out from nickel to the other cornerback position. Can he be good and not be a fall off from what Malik Muhammad was last year, I think that's possible. And if that's the case with the better pass rush that you're going to have, I think they can be really good on defense, because I agree. That's probably the biggest question on the Texas defense, because I don't really have a question with the linebackers. I don't really have a question with the edges or the defensive tackles right now. But secondary, there's a little bit, because Andrew Mukuba, like you said, really good football player, really great instincts, and you saw that all the time. He would make plays off the ball, running out of nowhere, making interception or making a big hit. So you're going to miss that. But then you do bring in Michael Taft back, who really good, really underrated player. He's going to slide around all around on the defense this year as well. He's running nickel right now mainly, which is weird. I did not see that happening, but they slid him down to nickel. He'll also play safety. And you have 3 legit safety options. Like Jelani McDonald's a really good football player for Texas. Derek Williams, I think, is the most talented secondary player on the roster right now for Texas. His issue has been health. And then we have Michael Taft obviously coming back, and you'll see those 3 probably rotate between safety and then nickel. Derek Williams more safety than nickel. But there's a lot of talent out there as well. Like Kobe Black, really talented cornerback, 5-star kid. Jalen Gilbo can be, like I said, really good cornerback out there. Cage Phillips, who is a 5-star freshman, I think can be good, but I don't think he factors in that much this year.
Yeah, so a question I want to ask, continuing again with your viewing point on our wide receiver core, I'm pretty high on it. I mean, I think J. Michael Sturdivant in the right system now could really have a true breakout year and be one of those receivers that not many people saw coming. And where do you look at our receiving core and comparing it to your defensive back room? And do you be like, okay, that worries me a bit? Or is it more of just, hey, DJ Lagway is going to be able to get to his guys and our running room is going to open it for our receivers?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think so. The only concern I have pass defense-wise is probably your tight end position. That's going to be my biggest concern versus anyone you face, because Anthony Hill, if he does have one weakness, it's dropping into coverage consistently. I've seen him get beat once in a while. Leona LaFau, I think, is a little bit better at that, but we'll have to see. He's still not the best at it. Trey Moore, still kind of getting used to that position, getting pushed out from edge to there. I think you're going to see him and Brad Spence kind of like share the role at middle linebacker and edge. So I don't know how they're going to do guarding your tight end, but that'd be my biggest concern. Other than that, I don't, like I said, in the pass game, do I think they're going to be as good as last year? No, because I think last year it was something crazy, like 8 touchdowns and 22 interceptions in the passing game against this Texas defense. That's probably not going to happen again, but I still think they're going to be really good.
Yeah, something to maybe ease your concerns a little bit about our tight end. I mean, Hayden Hansen going into his 4th year as a redshirt junior. You look at his stats here, 207 yards, 1 touchdown last year. I do think we had a tight end, Arliss Boardingham, who we thought was going to be a breakout player last year, but ended up not doing well. It's now at Bowling Green. I mean, maybe he can become the next Harold Fannin, but don't know if you get that from what we saw last year. So I've heard a lot of good things about the work he's been putting in, really training his route running. But for a 6'7", 270-pound tight end, I don't know if it's going to be too much of a trouble for Anthony Hill or these linebackers to keep up with him in coverage. I think maybe where Florida could have an advantage if a tight end was to break out, it would be our redshirt freshman, Amir Jackson, former top 100 recruit, a true receiving threat tight end compared to these guys here. So maybe that's where Florida could have an advantage. But unless we do see Amir Jackson break out, which we play 2 big games before we play Texas, I don't know if it's something that I would be predicting.
Yeah, I mean, the way I kind of look at it is, I mean, yeah, I think the tight end. Yeah, if there's one position to have concerns with stopping Florida, tight end's a pretty good one to have because we don't really have a lot proven there. Hayden Hansen probably is going to play a big role this year, but probably really more of a guy that should be the second tight end for like 12 personnel packages. I mean, I think, to me, like, I think Florida can have some success running the ball in this game. I think throwing over the middle of the field is going to be a struggle, just because of how good that linebacker core is. I think the hope is that Florida has a pretty explosive passing game this year because we kind of know that's how DJ Lagway wants to play. You know, he's looking deep to shallow. Like that's just kind of how he processes the field. So I really do think that secondary versus receiver matchup could end up being so pivotal in determining what happens this game, because I think if Florida can hit explosive plays, I think they'll stay in this one. If they're having to dink and dunk their way down the field against Texas, I think it's going to end up being a pretty long night, probably night. We'll see, I guess.
So my last question here about your defense, a player that I really like and was really good at his former school before going to Texas, that I'm just not sure what he is. What is Trey Moore? I remember we discussed it. Like, is he an edge rusher? Is he like a true linebacker? I mean, what is he doing for you guys?
So they're cross-training him to play linebacker, but mostly. But it's hard for me to believe that the guy, I think in his final 7 games, had all of his sacks. He had 5.5 sacks in his last 7 games. He really came on down the stretch at the edge position. Like, can you take that guy off that position and say you can't really rush the passer anymore? You're going to be dropping into coverage most of the time. That's hard for me to believe they're just going to do that 100%. What Texas loves to do on both sides of the ball, but especially the defensive side of the ball, they love positional versatility. So that's why you have guys like Brad Spence and Trey Moore that can, kind of do both. They can drop back into coverage, but they can also rush the passer. So I do think they're going to, 60-40. I think he's a linebacker 60% of the time, 40% the other time. I think he's going to be an edge. That's what I think is going to happen. Because at the next level, I think he just wants to show what he can do for that next level, because he kind of doesn't have a home right now. If you look at his body type, he's kind of a tweener at every position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that I think kind of answers our question, because I think a lot of confusion about him, like an interesting player, but just we weren't quite sure how he's going to fit into what Texas is trying to do defensively this year.
I'm looking at our lads, and it says his transfer school is UCLA. Wasn't he for UTSA?
I thought the same thing. I noticed that, and I thought the same thing. Yeah, that has to be.
Yeah, it's UTSA.
Okay, so this is just error on their system, and I guess we can finish it off talking about who I think might even be the best defensive player, maybe the best player in the country, Anthony Hill, your linebacker. I mean, I don't think there's a linebacker that even comes close to him in the country. And it's coming from me, like, we have a very talented linebacker core. Pup Howard, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs just had a phenomenal scrimmage yesterday from what we were told. Jada Robinson, like, we have some good linebackers. I would trade all of them just for Anthony Hill. Like, that's how good I think he is. He had 8 sacks last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 sacks last year, but can rush the passer, but also it can drop back and stop the run. And you say he struggles a bit in pass coverage, but as we talked about earlier, I'm not sure that's too much of a worry unless you get to a point to where he's having to cover a receiver, maybe. But better than Harold Perkins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm nitpicking here. Like, that's his weakness, but he's still better than most linebackers at it. Yeah, the guy's a freak. I think at the next level, he's an edge. I really do. Like, having 8 sacks as a middle linebacker when you're barely blitzing or playing off the edge is ridiculous. I think if he's just a pure edge, he's getting 10 sacks a year. So he's a freak athlete. We knew when I was watching him as a freshman in that Alabama game, I was like, yep, that's a 3-year guy. He will be completely gone after 3 years. So cherish him while he's here. This is last year. So cherish him, and we'll see what he does. I'm expecting butt kiss. That's my opinion. That's what I expect from him this year. And I think he expects that from himself. He's a great player.
So looking forward, you think he's kind of a like Micah Parsons, like don't overcomplicate it kind of guy?
Yes, that's right. That's where I'd put him. I think you need to gain like 15 pounds for that, but it's just natural instincts of getting after the quarterback. I mean, having 13.5 sacks as a middle linebacker in college is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll end up talking about the defense here. So you have this penciled in as a loss for Texas. If Texas wants to win this game, what is the one player on defense that has to stand out and has to maybe take over the game?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I agree. I think not one player, but one position, the defensive tackles, because I think Jaden Ball is probably how you win this game, more of game control, and then, like you said, take the shots off the play action. I think that's how you'd win the game. So I think you have to contain Jaden Ball in your rushing attack. I really like Jaden Ball. I liked him last year. So I think he's in line for a really big year for you guys. And I think that's the guy we'd have to stop defensively. And I think that's going to come down to Murad Watson, Alex January, Josiah Sharma, Travis Shaw, all those guys. I think they're going to have to be the ones to do that.
Perfect. We will be right back after this break.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
All right, welcome back to our Florida-Texas preview. We just discussed the defense. Now we're going to get into the offense here. And I look at the offense and a lot of talent, but it's mostly unproven. Besides maybe the running backs. I mean, yeah, besides the running backs.
Yeah, the running backs are loaded. Yeah.
Absolutely loaded. But I looked at the receiving core. This is kind of where we started with Arch Manning. But this is where we looked and maybe started seeing Texas as not as highly on a pedestal as we originally had them. I know you look at all the talent, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Jamie French, a former 5-star, like so many former 5-stars and highly rated recruits on this team right here. And you look back at who they've been producing, Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden last year. So they've had production, but not much production from the guys on this roster currently. What do you expect from these guys?
Yeah, so I think I need one of the wide receivers, whether that's DeAndre Moore or Ryan Wingo, really to grab the bull by the horns and be the number one wide receiver for this team. I don't know who that's going to be. But in a Sark offense, someone's going to get, 800 plus yards, 7+ touchdowns. Those are kind of the numbers like built into the system, in my opinion. I think it's going to be Ryan Wingo. The scrimmage yesterday, apparently, that's like the one guy the defense could not stop. And I think he's super talented. I said when Texas signed him, I personally believed he was the best wide receiver since Roy Williams to play for Texas. I think that's going to be the case when he does decide to come out. I think he can be the third best wide receiver in the country. I think it could be Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and then Ryan Wingo. I think that's how good he can be. But then DeAndre Moore, I heard him talk, and he's super confident in his ability. And I've heard guys like Jordan Whittington, who came into the NFL, say, hey, he's up next. He's going to be a really good wide receiver. And he's been good. Has he been really good? No. But I do think there's that next level that he can go to. The 4-man rotation right now is going to be Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston, and then Emmett Mosley, the transfer from Stanford. And Sark, I love when Sark brings up guys without, in the question being mentioned that player's name, because that tells me that player's going to be good. Every time he does, that player ends up being good. He brought up Emmett Mosley's name. He just said it. He's better at everything than you think he is. That's what he said. It's like, okay, well, if you say that, then I think he's going to be pretty damn good. And he was pretty good for Stanford. He had 500 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. And for Stanford, that's pretty good. So those are your main 4. Then after that, I think you get sprinkled in Dalen McCutcheon, Khalil Lockett, Aaron Butler, maybe a little bit of Jamie French and Michael Terry. But I think Dalen McCutcheon is probably the 5th guy right now. He seems to be the one freshman that's ahead of everyone else.
I know, Natuno, when we did this and we talked about the receivers, you had more of the issues. Is there anything he didn't touch on right there at the receivers that maybe you encounter?
No, I mean, I just think it's unproven. But I mean, I'll be honest in saying that, while I think it is a pretty much entirely unproven offense, at least at the skill positions outside of running back, I don't really worry because I honestly, Sark is just kind of one of those guys who I trust to figure it out. I mean, Sark is at the cutting edge of offensive football in the sport today, I think. But I am curious, between, kind of an unproven receiving core and obviously Arch Manning, who, I mean, it's kind of insane to me the way that he's been kind of already crowned. I mean, the guy's number 1 in Heisman odds, only started 2 games. Obviously, we all know what he was as a recruit and kind of his quarterback pedigree. But I'm curious, in your mind and in the mind of the fan base, is there even a doubt about him? Is it just we were successful with Ewers who had his limitations? Now we're getting, maybe a generational guy.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I'm different from the fan base. I've said the fan base has gotten a little bit out of control, and I wouldn't even say it's the fan base. It's more the media. I think it's been ridiculous. Like, I have Arch Manning ranked right now in this season, like 8th to 12th best quarterback in the country, 5th best quarterback in the SEC. I think that's like a fair ballpark for him. I do think this offense will be more explosive with him. He just has a better arm than Quinn Ewers. He's also willing to take the shots. Quinn Ewers passed up a lot of shots that were 50-50 balls. Arch Manning will not do that. But that can also lead to the downside of, hey, the first game he played, I believe this was versus Louisiana Monroe last year. There were shots open like underneath, and he just refused it. He said, you know what? I'm chucking this thing up there. I'm going for it. And he ended up throwing 2 interceptions. Like, dude, there are guys underneath wide open. Why are you not just checking the ball down? And Sark even said that and talked to him. And the next game versus Mississippi State, it was a complete change where he took what was given to him. But then when that shot was there, he took it and he played phenomenal in that game. And that's the mindset I wanted to see. Now, can you string that mindset along 12 games in a row? That's what I need to see. That's my biggest concern with him, is just trying to take kill shots every play, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
I heard.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
So I think yesterday you guys had a scrimmage, and I heard the defense just shut down the offense. Is that any worry right there, or just the defense had a better day?
No, I think, and Sark said this too, and I completely agree with him. You want your defense to be ahead at this point. Like, if your offense is ahead of your defense at this point, when offense seems to come along slower in football at every level, then your defense probably isn't that good. And the question could be, pose, is this the best defense Arch Manning will play all year? Because there's a realistic possibility he's playing his best defense every day in practice. And I think that's the thing. Now, do I think this offense is going to come out and be great right away? No, I don't. I agree. I think there's too many moving pieces. I think you're going to see the best of this offense probably around week 6, week 7, and then go on. That's why I think you guys can beat us, because that's right before I think we're going to start to click. And there's a lot of talent here, but I completely agree. It is unproven, but there is a lot of talent.
Yeah, I'm just curious, kind of like, you mentioned, Arch making things more explosive, because I think that's kind of been the optimistic take on the Texas offense that I've heard, is like, basically it boils down to, the Quinn Ewers checkdowns and screen passes are over. It's time to play ball now. Is that kind of the way that it feels? Is that the vibe around offseason and spring?
So I think you're going to have the screens, because Sark loves doing that. You're going to have the checkdowns, but there were plays just completely turned down from Quinn Ewers where it was there, and for whatever reason, he either didn't trust himself or he didn't see it well enough to rip the ball. Could have been the injuries too, just build up, and he didn't have that anymore where he could rip the ball. But Arch Manning, I just believe's going to, because I've seen it. That's my issue with him. And the good thing is he will rip the football. He's going to say, I have a strong arm. I'm athletic. I'm going to rip this thing in there, and and we'll deal with that. And I think Sark is going to be willing to deal with that, because if you've watched Steve Sarkisian's offenses when they're really good, like that 2020 Alabama offense, what was it? It was short, kill shot, short, kill shot. I think that's what they want to do offensively, and I think they're going to be able to do that with Arch Manning.
What role do you think his mobility will play? Because I think that's one of the bigger defining differences between him and Ewers.
Yeah, so I think in bigger games, like when we play Ohio State week 1, when we play you guys, when we play Georgia, when we play Texas A&M, when we play Oklahoma, I think we're going to build in, 6 to 8 runs for him just in this game. He's going to run the ball 6 to 8 times, and then the obviously mobility factor will come in. And if he finds any lanes, he'll take that. I think other games, I think Sark's probably going to be like, listen, we're having no runs unless you see something, you go ahead and take it, but also get down in those games, because there's no reason to put that mileage on your body. But Sark isn't in love with that. Like, he was only used like that last year because he was the backup quarterback. I would be really shocked if they use him in any Tebow-esque way, unless it's in really big games in the red zone.
I think you see similarities in that with Florida and DJ Lagway, especially with Lagway's health issues, where you can't afford to run him against South Florida in that game.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, the drop off. Like last year, the drop off for our quarterbacks was, some would argue there wasn't a drop off. This year it's a big drop off, because I don't even know the backup's going to be. It's either going to be Trey Owens, sophomore, KJ Lacey, freshman, or Matthew Caldwell, transfer from Troy. So that's a gigantic drop off.
That's actually that's the question I was exactly about to ask you. With all the Lagway injury concern issues and everything, Florida fans especially love to talk about, okay, if Lagway gets hurt, who's going in there. And our backup QB situation is not the best. But I look at yours, and I don't know if it's the best either. I mean, I was wondering, like, Matthew Caldwell, you brought in from Troy as a transfer. Wasn't spectacular at Troy or anything like that. And Trey Owens, a 4-star, like in the 200s. Lacey, a true freshman who is in the 150s, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, I don't know if you guys have that backup either, to where if Arch does go down, you know, what are you guys looking at there in the QB, and how is your offense looking if you do have some injury type of thing to pop up?
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting, especially if it's early, because I think it's probably Matthew Caldwell the first couple weeks, but then I think after that, I think it'd probably be Trey Owens, just because I don't really see the point of putting in Matthew Caldwell. Like it's like Arch gets hurt week 7 and you put him in because he's only going to be here for another 5 games. To me, at that point, you should just go with Trey Owens, see how he does, because you're going to have him potentially for another 3 to 4 years. So I don't know. I haven't seen. I will say this: I have seen Trey Owens in the spring game last year, and he looked very good. Again, spring game, so I'm not going to put much into it, but that's the only thing I've seen from him. Didn't have a spring game this year, so I didn't get to see KJ Lacey. I like the mobility factor that he has, but it's hard for me to imagine he grasped the offense at all this year. I think it's probably going to be Matthew Caldwell or Trey Owens, and I'm probably leaning Trey Owens, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'll say spring game. We saw Adam Warner just recently have a pretty good spring game, and we saw, I mean, you know, he had a year to improve. He was only a second season in college football, first in the SEC. So, you know, maybe you give him some leeway to improve, but we saw how good Adam Warner was last year in that Texas game.
Yeah. I'm curious. We've kind of brushed over it a little bit because I think we're all so certain of it, but how much of an impact do you think how big of a running team do you expect this to be? I mean, obviously Trey Wisner coming back, CJ Baxter returning from injury, Jarrett Gibson, like with these guys, plus, sure things at running back, plus maybe some uncertainty along the offensive line with what you lost. Like, how do you expect that? How effective do you expect the run game to be, and how much of a part of the offense do you expect it to be?
Yeah, so I made the video on our channel about why I didn't think Texas was basically going to win the national championship after the Mississippi State game, and I got called a moron by Texas fans, idiot, da-da-da. And there's just things that reared its ugly head in that game that continued the rest of the season, and that was when you needed 1 yard, you could not get that 1 yard. You saw that versus Ohio State. You saw that versus Georgia. You saw that versus the really big competition that they had to play in the year before versus Washington in the red zone when you're at the 12 and you have 4 shots and you're not able to move the ball and score a touchdown to get you to a national championship. And I think that's the last step for this team is, one, being able to run the ball effectively inside zone especially. That's been a gigantic emphasis for this staff of we want to be able to manhandle guys in the trenches and actually be able to move that 1 to 2 yards when we need it, when everyone knows in the stadium, hey, you need 1 to 2 yards running the football here. Can you get it? They've really put an emphasis on that. And I actually do think the guys on the interior of this offensive line are better built for that. They're more maulers than anything. I actually worry about them more in the passing game. And then CJ Baxter, the injury, he's just not 100% cleared yet. He did in the scrimmage. I will say it was a good sign. Did not wear his knee brace, but I guess it was a super quick whistle when he was touched. So he's not 100% or even close to that right now. So right now you have Trey Wisner. And then in my opinion, the best running back on the team is where your cursor's right over Christian Clark. When we make our predictions for Texas, I think he's going to lead Texas in rushing. I think he's that good. I love his film coming out of high school. I think he can do it all. I think he's the most complete back on the team, and he's also coming back from injury, but apparently he's just been amazing since coming back. He tore his Achilles last year, and there's been no drop-off according to the coaching staff. Like, they're shocked at how quick he's come back from that, where it's kind of the opposite with CJ Baxter. It's been a little bit more slow. I don't even know if he's going to be that much of a factor this year. And if he is, it probably won't be until, honestly, we play you guys. That might be his first real, like, hey, we're giving it a full go this game.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about the running back rotation. I mean, Trey Wisner had 1,000 yards last year, and Baxter was so hyped before his injury in the fall before the season. Jarrett Gibson, originally from Gainesville, if I'm not mistaken, and once committed to Florida until he fired Mullen and everything. So, you have a very talented running back room. It's not a question of who's it going to be. I mean, it's not a question of is it going to be good. It's going to be who's it going to be. And CJ Baxter, if we're not talking about him early in the season, I think it's really interesting because going into last year, everyone was talking about CJ Baxter to be that next Bijan. And that's what the question was going to be, because who's replacing Bijan Johnson, who was such a great player for you guys and workhorse type of guy. And Trey Wisner now came out. Did anyone expect Trey Wisner to be 1,000-yard running back last year?
No. So when he came in, this is the thing too, like what I like about the staff, they'll say like without being questioned about that player, they'll bring up, hey, these 5'6" freshmen are really good. When he came in as a freshman, he was being mentioned all the time. They're like, damn, this guy's really working hard. He's killing it on special teams. And that's what we kind of thought he was going to be, as a special teams, third down back type of guy, but he really stepped up. And I said, I love Trey Wise. I think he's a good running back, but I don't think he can be a number one running back on a championship football team. I've said that. I believe that. So if he's our number one, I don't know if this team can win a national championship. That's why I really need either Christian Clark or CJ Baxter to step up and be completely healthy and full go. I think Christian Clark is the more likely outcome of those two. And then Jarrett Gibson can be a really good football player for us, but can he stop fumbling the ball? I think he fumbled like 2 to 3 times versus you guys last year. I know it was in blowout time, fourth quarter, but I don't care. You still got to hold on to the football. And we got to see Jaden Blue had that issue last year. Jaden Blue fumbled all the time, and that was his issue and why he didn't play that much going down the stretch. So I just need one guy to really step up here. But I agree, like 5 deep, if they're healthy, I'd really like to know if there's a better or more talented running back room in the country than those 5 guys.
Yeah, you're talking about Trey Wisner as someone nobody expected. I think very similarly could be said about Jacoby Jackson, who statistically was arguably better than Jaden Ball was last year on a per yard basis. And coming out of a JUCO, he only had FCS offers and was ranked in the 100s of the JUCO rankings, and Florida barely offered him, and that's the only reason he's in the FBS level. And after his first year, it was even said that, hey, he hasn't done much, and there were talks about him maybe even leaving. And then last year, he really stepped his game up. And you talked about Jaden Ball, and you thinking he's one of the best running backs in the SEC. I mean, Jacoby Jackson should be getting like half identical carries to what Ball will be. So I think that's real interesting how running backs, that we have so many talented running backs. I mean, I think both of us do. Yet it's the guy nobody expected is going to be getting major impacts for hopefully high-level teams.
Yeah, I'm curious, Matthew, too. We've talked a lot about like sort of the Texas side of this matchup, but I'm very curious what your outside looking in opinion is of this Florida defense. You know, obviously a defense that was pretty bad at the beginning of the year and turned things around, had some portal losses, but return a couple really key guys. So I'm curious kind of what your outside, non-orange and blue tinted glasses perspective is on this defense coming into the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question as well. You guys have a lot of talented players. Like Tyreek Sapp is a really good player on your defensive line. Where do you guys see your like biggest weakness? Is it in your secondary, your linebackers? Where do you see the biggest weakness for you guys?
Secondary. I personally think secondary.
I think it's pretty clearly the secondary, but I also think there's a path for both safeties and corners to be pretty good. I mean, there's talented players for them. I mean, you look at our safeties. Jordan Castell is going into his 3rd season here, where he started every single game of his career since his true freshman year, where we've seen really good moments from him really early on in his career. And then in the middle portion, in like the first 10 games last year, really until the Ole Miss game, where he was pretty bad. But then really the Ole Miss game and FSU and Tulane, he really started to step up again. And Bryce Thornton, who's another 4-star who's played a good amount here, also a redshirt sophomore, his 3rd year here now, where we didn't see too much of him. But then with Asa Turner getting hurt in our first game, he had to jump in. And really, as the season went on, he started making more and more plays, especially the Ole Miss game where he ended up picking off a dart twice. And then the corners. I think the question for us about the corners is more about health. I mean, Devin Moore, when healthy, is one of the best corners in the country, I think. I mean, is really good, but I don't know if he's played more than 7 games in a season. Like, he's injury prone. Just like, I don't even know what to say there, but like, he's so injury prone. And I know there's been talks. He said himself that he had some dietary issues of allergies and stuff that made him swell up. That's caused a bunch of his injuries in the past. And he's got that fixed now. He's hoping to stay healthy. But then Dijon Johnson, our second corner, who last year in his 2nd season started 5 games as well, and really impressed for his first time starting, and we're hoping takes that next step. But I think the real key here is the name everyone's going to talk about, Cormani McClain, the former 5-star. Last year, Texas smoked him. I mean, he didn't see a game out. He didn't see playing action after that Texas game. Or he may have late in the Tulane game when it was already over, but he didn't really see any playing time after that Texas game where you could argue he was the sole responsibility of like 3 touchdowns Texas guy. And now he's put on weight. He's up to 290 now. And the reports are he's having a fantastic he had a fantastic spring and he's having a fantastic fall camp so far. And I think that could be the difference maker. His 5-star potential was a top 15 recruit. Like, if we can get what we need, or if we can get what we thought we were going to get out of Cormani, or what Colorado thought they were going to get out of Cormani, that could be the difference between Florida maybe having a good secondary to maybe even being a great secondary.
Yeah, I mean, my main thoughts on the secondary, like, I think the starting level secondary is probably fine. I'm not sure it's great, but I think it's serviceable. I just think, especially with Devin Moore having, his injury problems, I think this secondary could get really bad really quick. I think the depth there is almost entirely unproven. A lot of question marks. So, like, that's, I think, my biggest concern with the defense. I think if you stay healthy on defense, I think it's going to be fine. Maybe not quite as good as we saw for those 4 games at the end of last season, but I think it'll be more than good enough with what I think will be legitimately one of the SEC's better offenses. But I mean, if you are 1 or 2 injuries away in the secondary from this just being a nightmare situation, at least unless someone is way more developed and ready than we know at this point in time.
And then how much of a jump do you guys expect? Because I know you guys got a new defensive coordinator, Ron Roberts. And then was the other guy, Vinny Cinceri or whatever his name is, is Ron Roberts calling the plays?
Yeah.
Or okay.
So Ron Roberts was here last year where Austin Armstrong was originally calling plays to begin the year. And then we made the change after the Mississippi State game or A&M game. Mm-hmm. That's where we really saw the turnaround in our defense. Now, you didn't see it against Texas, but I think there are a lot of circumstances there that you can't really explain why. But that's where we really saw the defensive improvement when Ron Roberts started calling plays. Austin Armstrong just took a lot of risk that we didn't have the talent, or just didn't make sense to make some of the risky plays that he made. And Ron Roberts really secured things. I mean, if you look at our overall production, we were one of the worst teams in the country or in the Power 4 at giving up big plays. But then when Ron Roberts took over, I mean, it was very limited, and it was playing more safe, bend, don't break football. And in that LSU and Ole Miss game, we got a couple of bounces go our way. And I think now that we're hoping to have a healthy season, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that Florida was the most injured team in college football last year, and most of those injuries were on the defense. So we actually hired 2 new coaches, Vinny Sunseri and Robert Bala. Pretty sure both of them got the co-defensive coordinator title.
Yeah, Billy has the 3 defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
He kind of does what Alabama has started doing.
Yeah.
Where you have 1 play caller and then 2 other guys that are co-DCs.
So I'm pretty sure what we're doing there is Ron Roberts isn't going to be coaching much longer. So I'm pretty sure they're hoping that one of those 2 guys could go in and fill his shoes for when Roberts does step down, whether it's after this season or in 2 years, whatever it is. So I think that's what they're doing.
And then how big of a jump do you guys expect to make? And that's the thing too, I guess that goes along with what are your expectations as a whole for Florida?
So you say a jump overall on defense or
defense,
defense. So I think if you look at the end of last year, so actually let me start with this. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but I saw a week ago. In games Florida won, we gave up 15 points per game, but in games we lost, it was 34 points per game. It was some crazy difference. And I think, and you look early in the season when we did struggle, that's where a lot of it happens in the Texas game. I think we're looking for more consistency. I think where Florida's biggest strength is going to be is our pass rush. You mentioned Tyreek Sapp earlier. Caleb Banks might be one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackles in the country. Really, he may be the reason we won the Ole Miss and LSU game alone. His presence inside was just unmatchable. I don't know if anyone else in the country could do what he did at that time. And there's people talking about him being a potential top 10 draft pick if he's able to consistently do that. But then you mentioned Sap. George Gums is someone that nobody knew going into last year and played both rushing the passer and more as a linebacker, going off and dropping back in coverage and stuff. But this year he's expected to be a true pass rusher. And he had 5 sacks last year, minimal time doing it. And I think this year we could see a big jump for him where I think it's possible he leads the team in sacks. And then LJ McCray backing him up, a former 5-star, and 2 other names. I mean, Aaron Childs, another linebacker who I'm hearing is really good at their cross training as well to rush the passer and draw it back as a true linebacker. He had a really good scrimmage. But the name that everybody's talking about is true freshman Jaden Woods. I heard he had 4 sacks in our scrimmage last year. I'm sorry, not last year, but yesterday. And we made a video about it last week. We talked about it last week where Jaden Woods is like the name everybody's talking about. He was, I think, ranked in like the 130s as a recruit, if I'm not mistaken. But it's someone I saw as I think was maybe the highest potential guy in our entire recruiting class last year. And weight room guy, he's already one of the leaders in the weight room. Is his twitch and bend to be an elite pass rusher is there. And from everything that's been said, our pass rush has so many guys there. It's going to be tough for him to get on the field as a true freshman. But if he's as good as what people say he is, it may be tough for him not to take him off the field. And if he's able to step up, I mean, we could have the best pass rush in the country, and I don't think it's crazy to say.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree, especially. I think, what I'm looking for this year, like more consistency. I don't know if I necessarily expect like a leap from the defense this year. I think maybe you could see that at the front 4, just with Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp coming back. If you can get good play at nose tackle next to Caleb Banks, that's probably the biggest like actual individual positional question mark on the defense. It's that other defensive tackle spot. Not a lot of proven talent there, but if you can get good play there with Woods providing depth as a young guy, with LJ McCray maybe seeing a bigger role, former 5-star, I think maybe you see a leap there. But really, to me, like, I just want to see picking up where you left off last year, because I think if this defense plays the way it did the last month of the season in 2024, I mean, I think this offense is going to take a leap. Maybe it won't be as elite as Florida fans hope and think it will be, but I mean, this running game should be fantastic. Lagway, if he's healthy, I think will open up the passing game in a way that you didn't even really see in that LSU and Ole Miss game. So to me, it's like if the defense is just playing the way it was that last month of the year, this is I'm not going to say a playoff team for sure, because it's a hard schedule, but a playoff caliber team, a top 12 team in the country. I think that's all very possible. I think that's all just contingent on the defense not taking a step back, which I'm not sure I feel like it should on paper, but I think there is enough turnover here that I do worry a little bit about continuing the success we saw like in November last year.
No, I think that's fair. And I think, like, for me, I haven't made my SEC predictions yet, but I have you guys in like a group of teams like Oklahoma, A&M, Auburn, and Florida. 2 of those teams to me are going to jump up and be 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 type teams. The other ones are kind of be 6-6, 5-7, 7-5 type teams. I don't know where I'm going to go with that yet. Like, that's the thing too. Like I said, if you could just guarantee me DJ Lagway health for 10 games, I probably would go with you guys at like 9-3 or 10-2.
To cover David's question here, I'm asking about DeAndre Robinson, who went to Texas, but I'm pretty sure after Brandon Baker left, he left Texas to come to Florida. Now he left Florida to go to North Carolina. It's pretty simple, like playing time and money. I mean, he wasn't going to start here at Florida and North Carolina, go play under the best head coach of all time, arguably, in Bill Belichick, and be able to start for him. Sometimes just how it goes. I mean, I don't think there's too much to look into it about that. I think you brought up our nose tackle questions there. I think another Florida and Texas related player, Joseph Mbachu, who was a 4-star last year, who committed to Florida as an unranked player, and then everything started going downhill for Florida early in the year, ends up decommitting or flipping from to Texas. I can't remember exactly the timeline there, but then before signing day ends up flipping back to Florida. Everything I've heard about him, I mean, he was a player who at the August of last year was completely unranked in the rankings and ends up finishing in the 250s. But from everything I'm hearing, maybe not making an impact this year. He's a bit raw, but he might be someone in a couple of years. that is going to be a player that's like, wow, how are we this low on this guy? Like, from what I hear, he's a 5-star level talent that if they can develop right is going to be someone that we're talking about as a potential first-round draft pick. Now, how much of that can we get this year? I think that's an interesting question because you mentioned our nose tackle. Jamari Lyons is someone who last year we thought is going to take a nice stride, ends up tearing his ACL, I think, before
in
the
camp,
season.
right?
Yeah. And Mekhi Barrow, a true freshman, ended up having to step up. He played pretty well in those snaps he had to take. I mean, we had Cam Jackson, who was a 5th-round draft pick, and Big Dez, everyone knows Desmond Watson there. So he didn't have to play too much, but he was getting snaps every single game and was doing decent. So I think our nose tackle spot there, if you can have one of those guys step up, if you can have one of them really step up, but if you can get good play from both of them, I think our nose tackle spot's looking pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, it's not a major concern. It's just like the only real area on the defense where we haven't seen a lot of the player that will almost certainly be seeing the bulk of those snaps. So, but I mean, I think if that is fine and you avoid injuries, especially in the back half of the defense, like I think you're probably looking at the very least like a serviceable middle of the road SEC defense, like worst case scenario.
So I wanted to hear. Last thing I wanted to ask you about, we didn't get into it here. Your offensive line. If I'm not mistaken, DJ Campbell's the only returning starter?
Yeah, so Cole Hudson has played a lot. He's not a returning starter listed. And then Trevor Gooseby, too. I mean, he showed me enough. I'm not really worried about him down the stretch because he played really well versus Clemson, played really well versus A&M, played really well versus Georgia. But, yeah, technically one returning starter.
Okay, and then I know Andre Kojo is the one who recently just suffered a season-ending injury.
Yeah, he was battling with Brandon Baker to be the right tackle starter. We actually thought it was going to be Nick Brooks, who isn't listed here, battling the freshman coming in, which shocked me that he was even in contention. But then it ended up being Andre Kojo and Brandon Baker, and Andre Kojo tore his ACL about 8 or 9 days ago now, unfortunately.
So do you expect this offensive line to be a better run blocking or pass blocking unit?
So that's funny. In the interior, I expect them to be a better run blocking unit. I think these guys are more maulers than the guys we had last year, especially DJ Campbell and Cole Hudson. Neto, I'm going to need to see a little bit more out of, but that was his issue, is why he couldn't get on the field was pass protection. So I think he's going to be really good in the run game. And then the tackles, I actually think are going to be better last year than last year's tackles at pass protecting. I think Trevor Gooseby and Kelvin Banks are actually pretty similar there. But Brandon Baker, I do expect to be the right tackle this year for Texas, is going to be better than Cam Williams at pass blocking. Cam Williams had all sorts of issues holding. He was actually the most penalized player in all of college football, not just offensive lineman, penalized player in all of college football, because he had issues either with false starts or then when the play did happen, he held a lot. Now, did he have a lot of tools and intangibles that I liked, and that's why he got drafted? Yeah, and I think the Eagles probably got to steal with him in the 6th round because I think he's going to end up being pretty good for them. But I wish he would have come back because he's a 6'7" monster, but he just had issue with his hands and holding. But I think Brandon Baker's actually a little bit more athletic out there, and I think he's going to do a better job in pass protection. But I do worry about him in run blocking scenarios.
So when we look at your offensive line versus our defensive line, I mentioned Caleb Banks as I think could be one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackles in the country. And it's not just because of his run stuffing, but his ability to get to the passer. I mean, he was someone who against Georgia was able to go against their tackles and beat them to the quarterback and cause Carson Beck to throw his interceptions. I mentioned how good our pass rushing unit could be. When you look with Arch and your offensive line, is that something that could be a worry? I mean, have we seen Arch under pressure at all?
No, it's definitely a worry. I mean, he was versus Mississippi State a little bit. My issue is, I need to see Arch consistently under pressure. Like, how are you going to react when you're under pressure constantly? And if this is one of those games where, every 3 to 4 dropbacks, you have someone in his face, how is he going to handle that? Is he going to turn the football over? Is he going to kind of shy away from contact and not step into throws anymore? How is he going to handle that? And then I'd need to see the offensive line, like I said, interior, especially in pass protection. Like if Caleb Banks is able to get upfield, are they able to stop him from getting to Arch Manning? Now, I will say I think Arch, it will be a little bit easier to block for him just because he is athletic. Once he gets out of the pocket, he's going to be able to make some plays. So your offensive line doesn't need to be perfect. But it is interesting, and it is a good question. It's a very interesting dynamic, especially when he is able to get out of the pocket and make plays with his feet. Are they going to, hold guys? Because, some offensive line do have issues with that. When their quarterback gets out of the pocket, they kind of freak out. I'm interested to see how well this offensive line does with that, because they didn't have to do that with Quinn Ewers. But then again, most of these guys didn't protect for Quinn Ewers, so that may be a good thing anyways.
Yeah, especially in that Ohio State game where Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau were just living in your backfield for that game. But before we start talking me into picking us to go 12-0 here, I feel like we should start wrapping this up real quickly. But so you said you have Florida as one of your losses. How do you think this game goes? You don't need to give me a score, but how do you think the game goes?
Yeah, so I think that's my biggest thing about this game is this is going to be the first true SEC game we're going into on the road. Like this is by far the craziest environment. Well, I wouldn't say by far. A&M's pretty crazy, but I think Florida's got an even better environment than A&M. And I think it's going to be pretty crazy down there. I think you guys are going to be able to rattle our offensive line in this game again because this is earlier in the year, and I don't think they're going to be full on mesh together at this point. And that's the biggest thing with me, communication along the offensive line with a whole new unit and cohesion and meshing together. So I think you guys will be able to get after Arch a little bit. I think you could see him make a costly turnover or two. And I think this is the game, honestly, right before Red River in the bye week. I think this is the issue, or this is the game that you guys could get us. I think it could be like 24-21, 24-20 type game. And right now, I have us going 11-1. Right now, again, I still have another 2 weeks to make predictions on this, but 11-1, and this is the loss I see.
Yeah, 2 weeks is definitely going to be us. When the season officially starts, we're 12-0 until we aren't.
Yeah.
Natuno, any wrapping thoughts you got here?
No, I mean, I'll just kind of reiterate sort of what I've said earlier when we've talked about this game. I kind of hold very idiosyncratic opinions about Texas because I think there's a lot of questions here. I think looking at this team, there's a lot of spots where I'm I think that could be a potential limiting factor. But I also still think this is a really good team. Honestly, this is probably, if I had a vote in the AP poll, this would probably be my preseason #1 team. I think a lot of that, to be honest, is a function of the fact that I think that most teams in the country, I have pretty big questions about one way or another. I don't think there's a lot of sure things, and I trust the talent at Texas. I trust the coaching at Texas. I think really highly of Steve Sarkisian. I think this is a really interesting game. I'm sticking with a loss just because I think it's a leap in judgment, just because Billy has struggled to win these games against teams that are just on paper so much more talented, which I think Florida's closed that gap quite a bit in the last couple of years, but I think that's still the case going into this game. So I'm sticking with a loss, but at home early in the season, kind of the end of an early season gauntlet for Florida. They've also got LSU and Miami right before. It really does feel like a recipe for an upset potentially against a team that, I would expect, honestly, that Texas is going to be, I think Texas is going to be the preseason #1 when the AP poll comes out tomorrow. I think they'll probably not have a loss going into that game. So I think in all likelihood, it'll be the #1 team in the country coming to town. Certainly seems like a big spot for Florida and a big opportunity to pull off the upset. I'm not quite there yet, but it wouldn't take a lot to sway me.
No, and that's the thing too. I agree with you. This team is unproven because I think out of the 85 guys on scholarship, 60 of them are either freshmen or sophomores. This is the year before the year for me. I think his team next year is going to be loaded as hell. But it's going to be interesting how this comes together because they could. If it comes together this year, like you said, there's so many teams with question marks. They could definitely win a national championship this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with this as a loss because if I'm picking us to beat Texas, I might as well just be picking us to go 12-0 here. And that might be a little bit too cuckoo crazy there. But I kind of think if Arch Manning hits, I think this is Texas' year. I know Arch has said and everything's saying he's staying for another year, and that's everything that's been reported. But if Arch does hit this year to where Texas is in the national championship presence, I have a hard time seeing him not being in the Heisman finalists and not being projected as one of, if not the top pick in the NFL draft. And we haven't seen anyone that highly rated not leave since Sean Oakman, right, from Baylor, if that's the name. I think
is it Oakley or Oakman?
Oakman, yeah,
it's Oakman,
okay,
from Baylor. And so I mean, if he's projected that high, and I think Texas is going to be really good. Like, I think if Arch is what the Heisman odds are saying, or if he's close to what the Heisman odds are saying he's going to be, I think Texas should win the Natty. Although, if I'm a fan and coming from your perspective, I don't think you should be saying we should win the Natty. That's kind of just a bad luck thing right there. And but I'm going to stick with it as a loss for us.
That's fair. I mean, that's the thing. I don't expect anyone to go undefeated this year. So, like, that's the thing. I just got to find out. I don't think we're going to lose to Georgia. But then again, I didn't think we'd lose.
Neither do I.
One of the games, or last year at least. I thought we'd split, but we didn't. So, we'll see what happens this year with them.
I also don't think we will lose to Georgia. Although you guys have to go to Athens, where Georgia hasn't lost in Athens since, what was it, like 2019? Or
I think it was before COVID, yeah.
It's been a while since Georgia's lost, although they haven't played really any big games in Athens. I mean, not to their fault, but like they just haven't because the SEC East. And then last year they played everybody on the road, so I don't want to discredit them too much, but we've said our thoughts here.
Real quick, just one quick thing before we go. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the season opener? Obviously in Columbus, but like I'm personally a lot less high on this Ohio State team than a lot of people seem to be.
I am too. So I put my money where my mouth is with these sort of things. 4 months ago put money on Texas to beat Ohio State because I just thought with everything they lost, and not players, I think so many Ohio State fans and people in general are not talking enough about the staff losses. Like, you can't lose your offensive coordinator, your offensive line coach, your defensive coordinator in one offseason, and then in the first game tell me they're going to be just as good as they were. I just don't see that happening. Combined with you lost 14 guys going into the NFL, and I know Texas lost a lot as well, but you lost your quarterback, the most important position on the field, and you're going to be having a guy start his first game ever, period. I don't see it this year for that first game. Texas should win that game.
Yeah.
I'm on the same page there. I have Texas winning, and just week one in general, I have Texas winning, and I'm not questioning it too much, and I kind of think you guys may even win by multiple scores, and I have a lot of those week one games kind of Texas, Ohio State, and LSU Clemson are seen as the two best week one games, and I have both of those games kind of being easy wins for Clemson and for Texas. And I'm actually a lot higher on the Notre Dame-Miami game. I'm having a lot of trouble picking that game myself. But, hey, thank you for joining the show, Matthew. It was great having you on. Really answered some of our questions about Texas. And but you got me closer to picking us to go 12-0.
Yeah, no problem. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait until, we'll get to do this again week of the game, and we'll have way more information. Right now, it's all conjecture and all what could happen, what's going to happen, da-da-da. We'll know by then, like, DJ Lagway's healthy going to the game. If Arch Manning's the real deal, is Texas undefeated #1 team coming into Gainesville? It's going to be very fun and interesting.
Do you have any final thoughts before we end it here?
No, I mean, I think.
Oh, sorry. No,
you're good. No, I was just going to say, I think this is probably the most interesting game on the schedule. I mean, I think Georgia's, its own thing because of the rivalry element, but I think this has the potential to be, when you look at preseason SEC previews, this is the game that's always showing up on what are the top games in the conference this year. I think this has the opportunity to be a big one, really interesting, a lot at stake for both teams. Obviously some football to be played before we get there, but I'm already excited for this one. I think it could be a very, very impactful game.
Matthew, what did you have to say?
Oh, I was just going to plug my stuff. I thought if you were going to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, so Twitter, MatthewMS97, pretty easy to follow there. Mostly football over there, sports in general. Yankees fan, unfortunately. They're not fun to watch right now, so not having fun with that. But, yeah, also Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Check it out. Also, again, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time with Brandon Ross. And then we're also, I believe, introducing another co-host this week on that show. So that'll be Tuesdays and Mondays, Texas football. And we have a video or multiple videos now coming about every day, talking about battles in camp and stuff like that. And there's a lot, like you said, a lot of young talent, so that leads for a lot of battles here. And not everything's set in stone right now for that Texas roster. It's going to be interesting to see who trots out there week 1.
Yep. Everyone go check out Matthew where he just said, thank you guys for watching. We will be back next Sunday at 7 p.m. where we're going to be doing our preseason superlatives. I think one big question we're going to be asking, and not necessarily superlative, is who's going to lead the team in sacks with all of these edge rushers and defensive tackles that we're super high on? Who's it going to be? But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next Sunday. Have a great week. As always, go Gators.